Good afternoon and good day to those who are listening to us from other parts of the world. I've slightly modified the topic that's assigned to me. Here we call the immigrants as New Canadians, and therefore there is New Canadian and Tamil Canadian perspectives on humanism. Considering the limitations of time, in fact, I would paint whatever I say in very broad strokes, and therefore I would focus my thoughts on three major issues. First is a brief survey of the multicultural and multilingual and multi-ethnic mosaic of Canada's social composition. Secondly, some reflections on humanism and religion, and third, on humanism as seen and experienced by Tamil Canadians. As you can see, the number of races, peoples, ethnicities, cultures, this is not exhaustive. In fact, it gives the major divisions and so on, which exceed more than 80, but here about 35 are given. But within the city of Toronto itself, on any given day, it is said more than 150 different languages are spoken. And we have 50% of residents in Toronto are born outside of this country. And this is considered to be a city with large diversity, and that is the strength and success of this country, as very often leaders and the mayor or even political leaders would speak very strongly about the richness of the resources is the richness of diversity. With a population of about 3 million people, it's one of the most multicultural cities in the world, as you can see it from the website from which I've taken this data. And that invites us to reflect on all that constitute this society, the different religions. As you can see, Toronto is a city where you would find memorials built for all religions. I call them memorials because every one of those temples, pagodas, mosques remind us of God, remind us of religion. But then there are other serious questions that arise underneath, and therefore that's what I would address now about humanism and religion. Because as we find Christianity is the majority religion, and then we have Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Judaism, and other religions, and about 26% say that they don't belong to any religion. One of the factors that religions go through, and particularly Christianity, is one symbolic expression is where we find data that was gathered by the Anglican Church, and there was an article written recently I came across in Global News, early part of the year, gone by 2040. And Anglicanism, it is said, shares a bleak outlook. But this is symbolic of what's happening to religions, because the humanist challenge, and the most powerful humanist challenge to all religions, is that the failure of religions. In spite of the fact that there are thousands and hundreds of people belonging to religions, professing their faith in religion, we also come across a state where it is the failure of religion that have caused serious and frightening divisions, leading even to wars in our own countries and outside. I come from Sri Lanka, and I do know how the excessive emphasis on Buddhist fundamentalism that has caused continued horror for large numbers of people of other religions. And therefore, humanism poses that challenge. Okay, if one is free to observe a religion, check yourself as to how your religious leadership, your religious scriptures, your religious faith, your religious celebrations have enabled you to form you as humans or not. And therefore, the question that is raised by many today from different religious persuasions is that why should one be a Christian, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Muslim, or a Jew? Why not just be human? And why not just be truly and fully human? In fact, there are writings in Christianity going back to the 3rd, 4th centuries with Ignatius of Antioch and Augustine, a great philosopher, who said the glory of God is when human beings are fully alive, when human beings are able to fully exercise their potentials. That's what gives glory to God, or that's what the expression of the glory of God. And therefore, in addition to being human, should one be a Christian, Hindu, or Jew? If that is so, why? Is there something more to being Hindu than being human? Is there something more to being a Buddhist than to being human? And this is a question that our children and our children's children would ask as we find the failure of religions right before our face. Is religious identity a superstructure? Does one become more human or suprahuman or superhuman just because he or she is following a religion? Or does one remain subhuman or below human? Is it a substructure? These kind of questions are raised when religion has failed to lead humanity in the right path and also to recognize the importance and the depth of human spirituality as well as the embedded nature of humanism. And then the practice of religion also brings various serious questions into mind. Can any means be justified in the name of religion just because it has a devout end? Burning of heretics to safeguard orthodoxy, something that Christianity practiced right up to the Middle Ages. Can children be slaughtered and widows be burned for the sake of expressing one's faith or practicing one's faith? Can human sacrifices be permitted because they are offered to God? Are imperialism, racism, male chauvinism be accepted with religious underpinnings? Can they be accepted? Can they be tolerated? Can they be permitted? Does prostitution become divine worship because it takes place within the sacred precincts of a temple? These are questions that our generation and previous generations have continued to face and will continue to face, and therefore we need to address them from a humanistic perspective and from a humanistic point of view. Now, the third issue that I would like to reflect on and would like to focus on is the humanism and Tamil Canadian perspectives. As Ulam Tamils, we are on an endless quest for justice precisely because of the total and, in a way, malevolent failure of religion. And what the people of in present-day Myanmar is going through is what the Tamils have been going through and went through in terms of the Muslims in Myanmar. As you know, how much of horror they have been subjected to, and they have been uprooted from their own soil, having lived there for several centuries. The expression of solidarity with the native Canadians is very strong among the Tamils just because they themselves carry the marks of oppression, the marks of ostracization, the marks of marginalization from social life, from community life, and from their own soil, just because they speak a different language and belong to a different religion, perhaps. Tamil rights group and similar organizations in Canada identify themselves with many of those. As I said, if there are 150 different languages spoken in the homes of Toronto on any given day, that's a sign that there are 150 different ethnic, social, linguistic communities living across because they could not live and express themselves freely in their own land. And therefore, wherever these people stand up for their rights and oppose whatever horror that goes on in their own countries, Tamil students and Tamil community and Tamil organizations especially have been very much and strongly behind them in supporting them. And also to promote Tamil, which has been trampled upon in our own country, as I would always say that one stands condemned to be killed just because one speaks a different language. That's all in Sri Lanka is. That's the way I experience life, and that's the way many Tamils would experience life. Just because you speak a different language, you do not have any rights to live there. In the sense, one can be arrested at any time, put to death without any kind of legal processes. And that clearly tells us that if there is such a situation existing anywhere in any part of the world, Tamils are always there, giving their full human solidarity to them. And also there are many activities of the Toronto Tamil Sangam which takes these issues as well as many other issues in terms of promoting our language, promoting our culture. Activities of such activities as the desire to establish Tamil chair in Toronto and also at Harvard University, which has now been complete. And then Tamil Literary Garden, which is established in Toronto in 2001, which seeks to recognize people who, in their writings, in fiction, non-fiction, and other literary and creative products, would promote human welfare and human values. And that also goes to support the humanist cause and the humanist ideology. And Tamil's Information, another monthly journal that has been published for the last 30 years or so, singles out persons who have, mostly Tamils, who have given their contribution in terms of the promotion of humanitarian welfares and humanitarian actions and worked for the welfare of human rights and the promotion of human rights. And we have been doing this internationally, recognizing them and then bringing them to Canada and recognizing them. This has been done by the Tamil's Information Journal, which is published in Toronto. Thirdly, I would like to reflect briefly on humanism and Tamilology. This has been already said in a very extensive way, but by Dr. Kannabiran and also others. I sometimes wondered why the great Tamil poet Bharati singled out 3 poets and said, among the poets we have known, and he compares them with number of poets across the world, because as many of you would know, Bharati could read and write in English as well, and also he could read French, and I believe he also has quite a good fluency in other languages. And when he says that among the hundreds and thousands of poets who have existed in the Tamil world, he singles out 3 of them. Yamarindha Pulavarale, Kambanai Pol, Valluvan Pol, Ilangovai Pol. He singles out Valluvar, Kamban and Ilango. And when you look at these 3, Bharati has his own yardstick which he applies to them. And that yardstick is Manulahil Manadan Thanai Kattiya Thalai Anaithum Sidaruga. Let all shackles that bound human beings on this earth, let all that be shattered. So Bharati's humanism extends beyond Tamil Nadu. Bharati's humanism extends to the whole earth, to the whole globe, to the whole world. He universalizes that, and he finds there are others who have done it before him. And that was, first one was Valluvar, Vayathul Valvangu Vala Valivaguttavar, one who taught by his ethical teaching how every human being should live in this world. And therefore he chooses Valluvar. And then he chooses Ilango. Ilango put together Silappadiharam, which brings how a state should look at people, even though the story that he takes is from a countryside village tale perhaps, but he takes it, builds it up in order to show that a king who fails in ethic destroys himself, destroys the nation, destroys his own people, his subjects. And therefore, Ilango looks at also from a universal perspective, and through the Tamil world, he brings out the whole notion of Aram Palaithar, Athanayum Palaithar. And thirdly, we have Kamban. Even though he saw Rama as an ideal king, but much more than that, he did not, and these three poets were not focusing on any particular society, any particular caste, any particular social group, or even a king, not even a god. They did not focus on a single god or try to embellish that concept. On the contrary, they focused on human beings. Manadam Vandradamma. These are the words of Kamban. It's humanism that ultimately become victorious. And that's where he composes his entire story. Even though he borrowed it from Valmiki or from the north, the story as it's composed is meant to sustain and support the whole human race. Now, these ideologies and ideas are being, in many ways, promoted and taken up today, I am pleased to see, by our Tamil scholars, those who are specializing, for instance, from Annamalai Kalaham under Dr. Balasundaram's guidance and others in Toronto. The topics in research subjects that they have chosen, in fact, focus on, as we have already been dealt with, there was many references made to Tolkappiyam. There was recently a doctoral dissertation published which was submitted in Tolkappiyam and several other, and also bringing together other literatures from the Sangam period. But there are studies being done on Manimekalai and a desire to recover how Tamil literature did not, the Tamil classical literature especially, did not submit itself to the imposition or of the power of one religion or of one king or of one society. On the contrary, there is a deep desire among our young Tamil scholars to rediscover the substance of Tamil intellectual depth and wealth by looking at it from how Tamil has contributed and how Buddhism has contributed to the growth of Tamil. We find it in Manimekalai. Even though Sathanar was a businessman, and as Dr. Kannabiran said, he was a great poet as well. Intellectual and professional ability to write poetry, to learn, to read, was not confined to one class of poets. Anyone could do that. It was open. It was open to all. But whoever engaged in it, they also had their own religious persuasions, but that did not prevent them from promoting the wealth of Tamil culture and Tamil intellectual depth for the welfare of the whole of humanity. And that's what we find in Manimekalai also. Mandilin Jnanathil undi koduttar uyir koduttare. When Sathan speaks about, in this world, whoever is able to help everyone to have a decent meal, everyone to have food, everyone to have the basics of human life, the sustenance of water and food and air and so on, when it is pure and good, that person gives life to humanity, gives life to the world. And it is this concept which is taken up later, both in Hinduism and in religious Tamil literature, when we speak about the divine reality as Thunilumiruppan, Thurumbilumiruppan. It's in every fiber as well as in every pillar. Or Vallalar's words, Vadiya Pairai Kandabodellam Vadinen. The ecological unitedness, oneness with nature. Whenever I came across a withered plant, I withered within me. And these are some of the most powerful resources that Tamil brings out in terms of enhancing, supporting, and strengthening our humanist persuasions and our humanist wish to bring all humanity these values which, as Plato would say, justice has no limitation, and therefore the unlimited persuasion of the principles of justice, of equality, of fraternity, of which Bharati wrote a great deal, borrowing from other poets as well. As we know, Bharati had been greatly influenced by Walt Whitman and the Dutch poet Weltraren when he wrote about equality from among his people, and that he worked for it. And my wish to constantly refer to Bharati is the fact that he stands out as one who ushered in a new era of a new Tamil vision. And that vision, he was able to bring it because he stood on the shoulders of such great poets as Valluvar, Kamban, and Ilango, who have left for us the basic principles and the fundamental structures of what true humanism should be. Thank you very much.